What are you willing to sacrifice to save what you love?
I'm ready to sacrifice everything.
Prove it.
Firstly, a big thanks to Azdin, friend of the channel and a friend of ours, who has not been very well this week, and he's still written this one, so we really do appreciate it. Stormwind Games are releasing its thought-provoking isometric adventure game on the Nintendo Switch, Batora Lost Haven. The protagonist will travel through many worlds, and her choices will impact the journey. But will she uncover a sublime, perfect haven, or will her decisions get her lost between worlds? My name is Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Now, let's find out. The story begins against the backdrop of a decimated London city in a world destroyed by unknown events. Our protagonist is Avril, who, alongside her friend Mila, discovers two amulets and ventures into the ruins of London. They come across two entities that address Avril as their champion and transport them to another world. She must restore the balance of each realm. You've got to love how these heroes just dive right in. If it was me, I'd probably make my excuses and go back to bed. Bestowed with the powers of the two mysterious entities, the sun then will grant her the power to wield a great sword and melee attack, and the moon bestows range. The player has to swap between both powers to tackle enemies and puzzles. Each has distinct visual cues, which makes them easy to take. Anything with an orange hue requires to be activated by the physical sun powers, and those with a purple can be controlled with the mental moon abilities. Avril's health gauge will be split into two to match each element. The power she currently wields will have its health bar depleted upon damage, and if this empties, it's game over. Now, some things can delay a swift death. Defeating enemies will increase a combo meter that rewards the player with a small healing power. One of the most interesting aspects of the game is its karma system. There are many story segments throughout your adventure which will grant the player the choice to respond or act as a conqueror or defender. Now, there's no specific right or wrong choice, but the outcome may change the direction of the story. It's always nice to see the developers trying something different. Another impact your choices have is on the karma rune points. Avril can purchase and find runes during her adventure. Each has an equipment cost and requires either conqueror, neutral, or defender karmic points. As mentioned before, the amount of conqueror or defender points you earn, it depends on those decisions you make. The neutral karmic points are awarded when leveling up. Runes vary from increasing health or attack power and can specifically affect one nature, which is good because it makes it feel like less of an arbitrary choice and differentiates it from standard linear progression. Combat relies on matching the right power to defeat enemies. There are 3 difficulty modes, and depending on which one you choose, it'll impact how easily enemies can be dispatched. Obviously, enemies will either have an orange ring or a purple one around them, and as I said, you'll have to match the colour to defeat them. The opposite power will still damage them, albeit with a much decreased impact. Now, on the hardest difficulty, enemies can only be dispatched by their matching colour. You're not the only one with abilities though, with some enemies having elements, and it will take smart combinations of your own skills to overcome them. Thankfully, there are some decent boss fights in here, and unsurprisingly, they also have elemental abilities. Now, I did enjoy the combat, especially when new powers are unlocked. These can be activated via the assigned button on the screen and have cooldowns to reuse them. It's similar in that way to games like Diablo. My only critique is the controls of the greatsword. The Y button is used to attack, and presses need to be timed correctly to land the final strike. The right stick, if held down long enough, would cause Avril to dash in the direction and end with a lunge of her sword. Now, the problem is that both forms of attack missed landing the hits or wouldn't finish the combo. I ended up spamming the spinning blade attack to compensate, or just attacking with my mental range bullets. What I'm trying to say is, it's not quite as precise as I would like, and ends up being a little fiddly. Her powers truly shine during the puzzle room segments. It reminded me of Guacamelee in terms of changing the scenery with a press of a button. Some puzzles require firing a mental bullet at a ball and controlling it until it reaches a pocket that in turn has a domino effect, causing something else to happen. Overall, the story can get pretty deep, and you'll watch Avril grow from an optimistic and snarky young woman to a strong fighter. There are some real-world topics within it, such as loss, and I appreciated what lengths the developers went to marry them into the gameplay. The controls, particularly within the menus, they do feel like they need some tightening. The pointer just slips over the assets on the screen, almost like it was curling on ice. If the items were bigger or there was some slowdown mechanic when you hover over them, that would work. Just, as I say, a little bit of tightening up. It's still a fun game, very much evident from the gameplay you're seeing on your screen. It scores 16 out of 20, and the controls, well, they're still okay, but I do have my gripes. They score 14 out of 20. Personally, I feel like the experience has been beautifully brought to life, with still portraits and epic cutscenes. There have been some sacrifices to the fidelity here and there, with some textures looking like lumps of shiny Play-Doh, but overall it's a pretty beautiful experience and of a high standard, all things considered. Now the soundtrack has been very carefully curated, with grandiose melodies kicking in, with a cappella increasing the dramatization.
I'll take you later, young Sheila. We have a battle to win.
My name is Sun. Through my glory.
This is particularly true during some of those epic boss fights. The voice acting here is decent, although it did grate on me that those main protagonists had American accents despite this being set in London, but it beats having a bad English fake accent, so we'll go with it. The font size can be a tad small for some. The developers did include a colorblind mode, which should make the game accessible to more people, and its overall color juxtaposition helps identify exactly where you are on the screen, and it looks brilliant on the OLEDs. I did encounter a couple of visual anomalies, such as captions remaining on the screen or random colored rectangles appearing. Nothing that won't be fixed with a patch, but I always like to have a polished initial experience. For me, visuals and performance score 15 out of 20, and that lovely audio scores 18 out of 20. This one's going to cost you £19.99 or your regional equivalent, and it requires 8.2 gigabytes to download. I couldn't find any mentions of it releasing physically, but I wouldn't be surprised if Team 17 went ahead with offering this as an option in the near future. It can be completed in around 10 hours or so, with 4 possible endings and a New Game Plus feature. I enjoyed my time with it, and although it's a little rough around the edges in places, but I do appreciate what the developers managed with the final product and its overall feel. It'll just need a little bit of patchwork. Still, value scores 15 out of 20. Despite the few niggles, it's nice to have a deep, story-driven adventure game that isn't a roguelite, and fans of this genre are going to enjoy it. It radiates charm and passion by the studio, and I think they deserve some praise here, because it tries to combine different playstyles and also mix things up to keep it fresh. Let's be honest, this genre has seen a lot of gimmicks, and I personally enjoyed the clever puzzles far more than the actual battles, mainly due to those few control issues I had. There's a lot of potential to expand on this universe, and I look forward to it. If they take the feedback on board, it could become a real great. Right now though, it gets a SwitchUp score of 78%. As I said at the start, Azdin hasn't been well and he still said he would do this review. Absolute legend. Please let him know in the comments if you enjoyed the review, and just cheers Azdin, we appreciate it. Thanks to our Patreons and our members and all of you that enjoy the content, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!